Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called When the Witch's Daughter Lifts the Male Lead's Curse. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! Charming Dionel is taken aback when he unexpectedly encounters a lovely white-haired lady named Daisy in a surreal forest-like location. Daisy, on the other hand, appears to be the most startled to see him, considering this is supposed to be a breakthrough moment for him as the main character. She's inside a novel called Monster Prince, where Dionel is referred to as a monster since he can transform himself into a beast after being cursed by an evil witch named Kalia. Today, he should meet the female lead and receive a true love kiss from her to break the curse. Classic. Daisy only wants to quietly see if he would get his curse lifted and leave, and she does not want to see him at all because he left her 13 years ago. Years have passed, and she still can't believe he turned out so manly after being such a cutie patootie before. But she quickly averts her gaze as he is the one who broke her heart. Despite Daisy's awkward statement that she's leaving, Dionel unexpectedly hugs her and begs her not to leave him again, which puzzles her because she knows he's the one who abandoned her. Let me take you to where this transmigration all started. 14 years ago, our girl actually entered the very novel she used to leave hate comments on because the plot was too cliché. She astounded to see herself in the 5-year-old body of Daisy, the adopted daughter of Kalia the witch, and the one who tortured Dionel alongside her stepmother. Actually, Kalia abducted Prince Dionel and cursed him with the ability to turn him into a monster so that she could absorb his magical energy. After forcing Dionel to continue consuming poisonous plants in order to increase his energy output, she harvests his magic. He will endure unbearable suffering until destiny brings him to the female lead, who will not be afraid of his appearance. In the story, once his curse is removed, he will return to the imperial palace and be crowned prince. Is there anything else you can imagine this poor guy doing with his authority? Obviously, he had Daisy and the witch put to death. Daisy trembles as she recalls all of this, and she too is a victim of Kalia's abuse, and was adopted to serve as Kalia's test subject for extracting magical energy. She is starting to freak out and wants to get home as soon as she realizes this. Honey, that is why you should never make hate comments. Kalia appears before her, and oh my, this witch is so pretty that Daisy is shocked and instantly addresses her as mother. This irritates Kalia, who then demands that Daisy address her correctly. However, Daisy makes the mistake of referring to her as ma'am, which only serves to infuriate Kalia even more. Maybe ma'am my? Kidding. Daisy awakens the next morning, having passed out due to Kalia's tremendous aura the day before. Plopping to the floor, she suddenly recalls that the old Daisy used to refer to Kalia as Miss Witch. And speaking of that witch, she comes into Daisy's room, appearing irritated, but finally smiles when Daisy addresses her correctly. Is she like bad? Cause she looks so pretty to be a villain. Kalia informs Daisy that she'll be going to the capital and hands her a pouch of poisonous plants that Daisy must feed the young Dionel at the abandoned house. She then gets angry when Daisy appears terrified and tries to compose herself, as she is going to meet Gelfus today. Gelfus Viscount Orsanium is Kalia's lover and the late emperor's son from his concubine. In the Orsanium Empire, the amount of magical energy one possesses determines one's strength, and Gelfus was born with insufficient magical energy, earning him the nickname Useless Crown Prince. He was an easy target for Kalia's ambition because of how disregarded he was. At the age of 14, Gelfus suffered a knockout, and it was Kalia, with her black hair and innocent appearance, who came to his aid, oblivious to the fact that she had orchestrated everything. After falling head over heels for her, Gelfus was taken aback when Kalia confessed that she is a witch and can't go with him. The Orsanium Empire hunts witches, but Kalia trusts him that this would change if he became emperor. However, considering Gelfus's lack of magic, it seems unlikely that he will become emperor. With her charming gaze, Kalia assured him that she would find a way to make him emperor, as long as he did what she said. However, not long after, the Empress gave birth to Dionel, who possessed an extraordinary scale of magical energy. Kalia knew this would derail her plan, so she abducted the helpless infant and cursed him. Baby Daisy is resolved never to torture the male lead, and since Kalia's return from the capital would take several days, she intends to take that chance to get close to Dionel. She joyfully puts the bread into her bag, hoping it will help her win him over. However, there is a major obstacle. She must get past 3 Cerberus, a type of 3-headed dog, before she gets to Dionel. Well, she can merely apply the poisonous perfume because the animals dislike the fragrance of it. But that also applies to Dionel, so her plan to get closer to him could fail. Still, she must spray it to prevent the three Cerberus from devouring her. Daisy successfully passes through them, but she suddenly stumbles into a mud pool, washing away the scent. The salivating Cerberuses approach her, but to her confusion, they simply lick her and want to play catch with her. Oh, they're just your typical dogs, but powerful. Playing with them till they pass out is Daisy's plan, but she ends up passing out first. She visits the abandoned house that night and immediately apologizes to Dionel for any harm she has caused him. She bows before Dionel, begging for another chance to redeem herself, and she digs inside her bag and pulls out a loaf to offer him as a token of her apology. Dionel slaps it away, making Daisy weep because she was also hungry, but she decides to give it to him. That witch is treating both of them very badly. Dionel, taken aback by her reaction, clenches his head and emits a dark aura, prompting Daisy to remember that in the novel, Dionel transforms into a beast when under stress. His clothing starts to tear as he tells Daisy to run away, but she can't because her legs are shaking with fear. By the time she realizes it, Dionel has turned into a monstrous creature and pounces on her. But when she opens her eyes, a cutie little panther is roaring above her. OMG, can I keep him? Dionel uses his tiny fangs to bite her arm, leading her to pinch his fluffy furry cheeks while scolding him for being a bad kitty. He releases her and is taken aback by his own behavior while Daisy smirks at herself, thinking that Dionel wouldn't be too much trouble. However, just as she turns around to face the bad kitty, he grows into a much larger feline and is ready to strike. Daisy, on the verge of death, remembers that the angrier Dionel becomes, the bigger and more deadly his beast form becomes. As Dionel charges at her, she is left with no option but to use the bread as a weapon, and much to their amazement, it manages to knock him out. Oh gosh, that's no baguette, but a concrete! Half asleep, but smitten with the warmth, Dionel turns back into his human form. Daisy is adjusting his blanket, leading Dionel to awaken, bolt away from her, and question whether she started the fireplace. Our very adorable Daisy proudly confirms that she did because he was unable to light it due to the witch's curse. She then flashes him her most radiant smile, but Dionel remains suspicious, telling her to quit acting friendly and instead asking her what she wants from him. As his anger causes his cute kitty ears to pop out, Daisy lets out a scream, expressing that she simply wants to be of help to him from now on. The Daisy he knows would never say this, so he grabs her hand and forces her to admit who she really is. But when our girl insists that she is the same Daisy, he lets go, causing her to fall to the floor. Frustration wells up in her eyes as she reminds him that she was terrible previously but is now helping him out, just like the bread she offers him. Dionel just responds that Daisy's help now will not change the fact that she used to harass him, causing Daisy to tighten her fists as she explains that she has no choice, since if she does not follow the witch's orders, she will get hit. Daisy goes on to say that she no longer wants to live a life where she hurts others in order to avoid being harmed herself. She understands that no matter how hard she tries to please Kalia, her stepmother will never love her, and she's only able to survive because she's still valuable to her. In the novel, Dionel becomes lifeless as a result of his suffering, but so does Daisy. Poor babies. After adopting Daisy, Kalia discovered that she was a Ludkelna. Ludkelna are individuals that possess enormous magical energy, or holy power, but are unable to use those gifts, hence they are considered useless by society. Kalia despised Daisy for being a Ludkelna, and used her as an experiment to learn how to extract magical energy. Never be fooled by beauty. This witch is truly evil for abusing tiny kids for her own gain. Dionel is unaware of this part of Daisy's life, since he only sees her as someone who has harmed him. Now that he is aware that they're in the same circumstance, Daisy believes she can win him over, but this only enrages him more. For the time being, she withdraws, but she does leave him an ointment to use before climbing to the back of the Cerberus and returning to the tower. Poor Dionel holds the ointment close to him, but when he realizes Daisy, unlike him, must have enough medicine at home, he throws it away. Truthfully though, he's delighted to see Daisy because for the first time in his life, he has a visitor who isn't there to hurt him but rather to chat. He then takes a seat next to the fireplace and blames all the warm emotions he's experiencing on it. Daisy wanders cheerfully inside the tower the next morning, heading to Kalia's library. Kalia is acknowledged to be one of the best magic users in the novel, but Daisy wonders why she became a witch rather than a magician, given how severely witches are treated. Her thoughts are cut short when she finally discovers the book she's looking for, Basics of Pharmacology. As a Ludkelna, she is unable to use magic, so she wishes to learn how to make medicine and treat Prince Dionel. A map falls from the book, depicting the area surrounding the tower. But what excites her is the location known as the Great Fairy's Spring. Since Kalia hasn't returned home yet, our girl eagerly embarks on an adventure to get there. After a joyful reunion with her doggos, she names all three, Saro, Barrow, and Russ. Our girl isn't too creative, but it works. Daisy then notices the blood from their mouths and realizes that these dogs know how to hunt, so she uses her big, lovely puppy eyes to beg them to bring her meat to share with the prince. Saro and Russ rush away to get it for her, while Barrow accompanies her on her trip. She is so cute. They eventually arrive at an empty campsite, so our girl does shopping and returns with a bottle and bowl. Barrow hands her a bag full of useful items that she can give to Dionel, which makes her very happy. When she arrives at the abandoned house, she is greeted by an angry Dionel with his cute ears, who is convinced that Daisy has hidden motives. She urges him to chill out, but then she spots the ointment on the floor and gets mad because he isn't using it. This makes Dionel look at her in complete confusion, as he can't believe a little child is scolding him right now. Daisy takes the ointment and orders him to stretch out his hand, which Dionel follows, puzzled. After she applied the ointment, he gets shocked to see that his arm has completely healed, prompting Daisy to exclaim that the witch's medicine is quite effective. After Dionel assumes it was hers, he was shocked to hear that she confessed to stealing it from Kalia just for him, and that the woman would never give it to her, no matter how sick she became. Dionel holds the ointment and refuses to use it or anything else that Kalia created, but Daisy convinces him to use it anyway, explaining that Kalia would be humiliated to know that her pricey herbs are being used by mere kids. She bursts out giggling at the thought of it, which makes Dionel smile too, and makes him decide to use it to his heart's content. Yay! We finally see him smile! She then drags a dead antelope her doggos captured and proudly presents it as their lunch, making Dionel's eyes light up. After that, she gives him drinkable water and promises to bring him more food from now on, while he casually holds his knife to butcher their lunch. He shows no signs of anger or refusal, which is a good start. But she freaks out just before he butchers it, so Dionel tells her to go play outside if she's scared. She heads outside until she suddenly realizes that she has a good knife that he can use. However, when she turns back, she witnesses him already splattered with blood, leading her to scream uncontrollably. Her booming voice overwhelms Dionel, causing his ears and tail to stick out, so she immediately closes her mouth to stop herself. She quickly apologizes, and surprisingly, Dionel accepts. After that, she sees his tail and, smitten by its plush texture, starts to unconsciously grab it. She starts having fun with it, but quits when Dionel looks at her upset. I understand you, girl. The urge to pet a wagging tail is so hard to resist. She panics and doesn't know how to explain what she just did, but again, Dionel refrains from being furious, pats her head, and begs her to calm down. How in the novel world are these two so cute? As they sit by the fire waiting for the meat to cook, Dionel looks over at Daisy and asks how she makes fire. But he quickly changes his mind when he sees that she's drooling. Cutie Daisy wipes her drool as she explains that the doggos can breathe fire, and she lights the fireplace using Russ, who has the weakest fire. She can't help but feel bad for the young Prince Dionel as she looks at his back. One of the spells Kalia casts on him makes it impossible for him to accomplish things like light a fire. If he tries, the flames would extinguish instantly. So Dionel has spent his entire time cooped up in a desolate house without any means of warming himself, and Kalia has cast a confinement spell on him, preventing him from leaving the house. Her concerns are cut off when she sees Dionel breaking wood like it's nothing, and she can't believe a famished 9-year-old boy could do such a thing. Talk about being the main lead! He then hands her a freshly cooked piece of meat that he prepared, and she excitedly devours it, making him smirk, believing that the antelope was not a gift, but that she simply wants him to cook it for her. Daisy quickly disputes it, stating that she is concerned about him and wants to make one less lonely boy. I see. Our girl was a Bieber fan in her past life. And look at that, her concern brought about Dionel to smile again, which amazes her, so she can't help but stare. Our grumpy boy notices this and becomes mad, flashing his fangs, which causes our sweetie bun to pout. Gosh, our baby's pouting face is so adorable. They finish eating together and Daisy flops to the floor, patting her now full belly, before suddenly sitting up and deciding it's time to go back, surprising Dionel. She adds that she will bring him more ointment, but Dionel simply says he doesn't need it anymore. This puzzles her, but she eventually realizes that this boy simply doesn't want her to leave yet, so she makes fun of him about it, but then receives a scolding. Cuties. She hurries to the door while claiming she will return tomorrow, but Dionel never looks back or responds, so she repeats it and says it's a promise. I have a bad feeling about this. Barrow drops her outside the tower and she hoppingly makes her way to the door, beaming as though today is the best day ever. Until she hears Kalia's voice. Oh dear, she's back already? Kalia smirks as she notices Daisy made a cape out of her clothing and leans closer to her, while our poor girl looks so terrified as she explains she just reused a dress she thought Kalia had thrown away. The witch, nevertheless, is far from finished. With an incredibly menacing expression on her face, she grabs Daisy's cape and demands to know where Daisy went, but this time, Daisy is unable to say anything as she is shaking with fear. She lifts Daisy and turns her hair crimson as she screams. This violent witch used to have black hair, but it went white after she became a witch. However, her hair may turn blood crimson, indicating that she is enraged beyond control. Gosh, throwing tantrums to a child? She deserves to be punished. Her red hair also symbolizes that she offered her blood to a fallen god in exchange for power. Kalia then throws Daisy to the floor and draws her magic sword, threatening her child to speak. She discovers that Daisy went to Dionel to collect magical energy. Daisy additionally reports that she created a cape out of the dress that had been chewed by rats, which surprises Kalia, but she doesn't care anymore because she only wants the magical energy she acquired. Daisy carefully states that she was unable to gather it because Dionel resisted too much. But the witch is smart, claiming that Daisy did not leave to collect because she does not smell like the poisonous plant at all. She gives Daisy a seemingly innocent smile while saying that a child who lies deserves punishment. The horror on our girl's face is so... Anyone please help! Daisy lies on the floor, panting and coughing after what seems like an eternity of beating, praying that her body can endure the pain she feels. She then finds a vial beside her and crawls to get it, which smells like cough medicine, so she drinks it all. The brutal witch must have beaten her so badly that she's unable to stand. She feels lightheaded and immobile immediately after downing the entire vial. Kalia didn't murder Daisy in the book, so she knows the vial couldn't have been poison. But now she's beginning to black out. Also, her final thought was that she promised Dionel she would meet him, which she now deeply regrets because she knows he's probably waiting for her. Daisy is dreaming that she is submerged in water and sees a hand reaching out to her. A woman's smile catches her attention as she opens her eyes to feel its touch on her forehead. She then feels her body revitalizing and her wounds healing, which takes her by surprise. She quickly turns to ask the mysterious woman if she had healed her, but all the woman does is smile. Daisy thinks the pretty lady looks familiar, but she brushes the idea aside and instead bows her head in gratitude for the woman's help. She asks the lady for her name, but then she disappears. Meanwhile, Kalia is keeping a close watch on Daisy as she sleeps and overhears her thanking someone, even though it was her who gave the antidote. She then goes on a tirade about how Daisy blindly consumes whatever she gives her, regardless of whether it is poison. You witch? Why are you acting like you care when you're literally the one who did that to her? After being sick for a week, our girl has finally recovered. Kalia complains about how troublesome she was, as if she were about to die, but she still saves her, so she must be more obedient from now on. Daisy then shudders as Kalia smiles and commands her to perform her work right today, and threatens her that if she disobeys her again, she'll be unwell for more than a week. Daisy sprays herself with a perfume to please Kalia and departs at once. Daisy makes certain that Kalia will not see her, and she intentionally falls in a puddle to get rid of the odor of the poisonous perfume before summoning her Cerberus friends, who rush to her while Daisy praises them for being clever enough to pretend like a bad doggy in front of Kalia. Cerberus swiftly grabs her dress as if to encourage her to hurry and jump on their backs. Daisy commands them to take her to the prince, and the group departs. Daisy is concerned as they travel since she has promised to meet the prince the next day, but now that she's returned after a week, she wonders if he will be furious with her. She consoles herself by thinking that the prince chased her away every time she was there, so he might be delighted that she didn't come as promised. We then see her chubby cheek pout again as she believes it would be unreasonable for him to be furious when she had been sick for a week. Suddenly, it hits her. The female lead of the Monster Prince book, Selena, is the same girl who helped her in her dreams. Because only imperial magicians in the Orsanium Empire are allowed to practice medicine, the common people mistakenly believe the magic is a type of magic that magicians can use. So Selena, who can heal a sick person by touching them, despite not being a magician, leads people to believe she's a witch. They harassed her and talked behind her back until it became unbearable, so she went to the forest, and that is when she found Dionel. Daisy quickly thanks Cerberus for their assistance, hoping that the prince is not upset with her. She gathers herself before entering the house, and as she opens the door, she calls for the prince. But no one responds. To her surprise, she finds him unconscious on the floor. Daisy rushes to his aid, checking his temperature on the forehead, and discovers he's running a fever. Fortunately, she recalls to pack the vial medicine in her bag, and she guides him in taking it, ensuring him that it will help him recover quickly. Our poor prince begins to cry out as a kid would, ranting that she failed to show up as promised and that he had been waiting for her. His tantrum shocks Daisy, and she too breaks down in tears as she realizes that Dionel, despite his adult attitude, is really a 9-year-old boy in need of affection. She also hugs him close and apologizes to him in the hopes that he will stop crying. He then squeezes her hand, pleading her not to leave. As his tears fall, she smiles, promising him that she will not leave and will always be by his side so he does not have to worry. And just like that, they both fall asleep. It's really them against the world. Dionel awakens to find Daisy still sleeping beside him, and as he tries to sit, he feels his hand on hers and recalls what happened, causing him to blush. He continues to grumble about how bummed he is that she had arrived after a week of waiting, and it appears that he tried to leave the abandoned house but became sick due to the confinement spell. While he looks at her still-held hands, he tries to detest her for being the daughter of the witch who torments him every day. But he can't shake the thought of the young girl who helped him and cares about him. A monster. He then gives her a troubled smile, but eventually chooses to forgive her this time. Daisy wakes up, wondering where the prince has gone, when suddenly she hears footsteps approaching her and sees the prince in the shape of a baby panther, growling at her. But she is surprised to see how quickly the prince transforms into his human form and begins to question whether he can now control his beast form. I'd like to see more of his adorable kitty form. She then gasps when she realizes that the spell must have been lifted. With a smile, Dionel believes that it would be impossible. This makes her feel disappointed because obviously he would not be in the abandoned house if it had happened. Then Dionel describes how, when alone and hungry, he transforms into a panther but can quickly return to his human form. Except for the times when Kalia torments him, he feels like he can control the beast form to a certain point. After that, Daisy asks a totally reasonable question. Why is he wearing clothes when he was clearly a naked panther just seconds ago? What a must-know question you have there, sweetie! Dionel finds this amusing and then asks her if she would like to see him with no clothes, which causes her to blush. He gives her a cheeky grin and tells her that, even though his clothing falls apart when he turns into a panther, he's always covered when he returns to his human form. He then teases her not to become overly excited, which makes her react more strongly to him. As they sit in front of the fireplace, she wonders why the witch hasn't come to find her yet, despite her orders to bring his magical energies to her. She quickly clarifies, before he misinterprets, that she does not intend to harm him. She goes on to add that she gave him medicine since he was in pain just a second ago, and that he is now pain-free after drinking it, proving her sincerity. He frowns, remembering how the medicine hurts like he's dying, but Daisy assures him that he's fine and that it's normal to feel discomfort before it works. She sees he doesn't trust her, so she tells him she's speaking the truth because she took it herself recently, which causes him to wonder whether she didn't come because she was sick. She nods, telling him that the witch beat her violently and left her whimpering in pain when she realized she hadn't given his magical energy to her. But in the end, Kalia gave her the medicine. Daisy was beaten, abused, and nearly died, yet she still manages to smile confidently and declare that she is now okay, and even believes she came out healthier. How could she be so pure? At this point, Dionel believes her and confirms that it helped him because now his leg has also healed. Daisy remembers that he did have a limp in the original novel, with the female protagonist curing him later. Then, with a sad face, Dionel asks her if she's not bothered about him being a monster, ugly and limping, prompting Daisy to be so shocked. Dionel was taken aback as she raised her voice in disbelief that he could say such things, especially considering how attractive he is. He puts a grin on his face and asks her in a playful way whether he's more handsome than the boys in her favorite novel, which caught our girl off guard. As soon as he gives Daisy the book, she scans it and finds out that although it seems to be a book about medicine, it also has some romance novel sections. That's Kalia's book, so, that witch is reading romance? After apologizing for reading it without her permission, Dionel shyly asks if she thinks he's handsome. Our not-so-confident boy blushes as Daisy asserts that he's more stunning than any character in the book, which makes Dionel happy and makes him want to read the romantic novel. She promptly tosses it into the fire, since a child his age should not be reading such books. She then changes the subject, asking where he learned how to butcher meat and if he had ever tried it before, only to discover that it just came naturally to him, possibly because he's a beast himself. With a faint grin on his face, Dionel reveals that he's adjusting to his curse of turning into a beast and is becoming more adept at controlling it. How our poor prince is finding the silver lining in his curse is admirable. He proceeds to reveal that he can transform into a panther whenever he sees Kalia, but he is unsure of how to go back to his human form, which is fantastic news for Daisy. She holds his hand in excitement and suggests that when the witch shows up, he transforms into a panther and give her a lesson. Dear, I don't think that would be that easy, though. Dionel's confidence increases as Daisy expresses the confidence she has in his abilities, and she goes on to say that she will steal all of the witch's poisonous plants so she can't use them against him. Even though the prince still has doubts that it will be easy, she's beaming with confidence and thinks it will be easy peasy lemon squeezy for him, considering he's the male lead. Yeah, I see, but seriously, you need to put some thought into this, girl. For some reason, Dionel can't understand why Daisy keeps referring to Kalia as a witch. Daisy thinks that sounds disrespectful enough as it is, and she doesn't know what else to name her stepmom. Daisy's eyes literally pop out as Dionel starts using curse words as nicknames for Kalia, and her spirit nearly leaves her body because she can't believe a kid who grew up alone learned such horrible words. When the prince sees her puzzled meme face, he laughs and confesses that he's only joking. She is so taken aback by Dionel's joke-telling skills, but then suddenly, they hear the Cerberus barking ferociously outside. The moment the prince detects the scent of the person we all know well, he immediately gets to his feet. Kalia is here. I was loving the fluff, but this witch had to spoil it. Dionel immediately quenches the fire while holding Daisy and hiding behind a corner packed with large boxes, just in time for Kalia to enter the house, sounding like a creep out to hunt for her daughter. Daisy looks disgusted at hearing that awful witch address her daughter and is worried that Dionel will misunderstand that she has a good relationship with the witch. As the witch loses her temper, she starts yelling at Daisy, telling her to come out or face her last day today. Daisy feels a shudder go through her body, and she looks over and sees that Dionel, who is holding her shoulder to keep her safe, is also terrified. She had earlier assured Dionel with confidence that he could defeat Kalia, but now she thinks it's impossible since Kalia must have brought poisonous plant perfume. Daisy mentally prepares herself, knowing she has no choice but to step up. So she smiles at Dionel and pats his head, assuring him that she'll be fine and that he must remain hidden until they leave. Before Dionel could react, Daisy already stands up and walks towards Kalia, prompting the witch to applaud her. Then, with a surge of malicious intent, she unleashes her lightning magic to punish the already traumatized Daisy. Our girl lies sprawled on the floor, her eyes appearing weary, yet she manages to silently assure Dionel that she's fine. After they leave, Dionel breaks down in tears and trembles, blaming himself for Daisy getting hurt. Driven by an intense desire to help the helpless girl, he hastily makes his way towards the door, but the confinement spell placed upon it sends him flying through the air. With another attempt, he goes through his transformation, starting as a small kitty and evolving into a majestic panther. He perseveres, enduring injuries as he pushes forward. Precious babies trying to protect each other. 2 weeks later, they actually put Daisy in a cell where Gelfus is swishing foxtail grass, wondering whether she will attempt to eat it up. Ugh, the heck is this person treating our girl like an animal? The dumb prince appears bored, while Daisy sits in the corner of her bed, disgusted. Gelfus stands up and unconsciously taps his scepter, causing it to activate and release its powers. In response to the ruckus it produces, Kalia scolds him, and the two put on a display of their lovey-dovey behavior in front of Daisy, who finds their antics awful. Daisy listens to them and discovers that Gelfus is now full of magical energy as a result of the power she pulled from Dionel, who is in monster mode and furious, increasing his magical energy. Kalia believes that Dionel will soon transform into a full-fledged beast, enabling her to draw even more pure magical energy from him. When it happens, Dionel will release black energy, which is far more potent than the vague red energy he is currently emitting. You may be asking how on earth a prince from the Imperial Dynasty and a widely hunted witch can be romantically involved. Well, there is a reason. Kalia cast a spell on him that would keep his love unchanged no matter how hideous she becomes. Gelfus soon became her partner in crime, and to begin their scheme to make him emperor, they brainwashed the Empress and made her crave the honey of a dawn flower that blooms only in the abandoned forest. Because the Emperor loves his Empress so greatly, Kalia knew he would obtain it for her. And as expected, the Emperor went on a trip to personally get it for his pregnant wife. But on the way, they came upon a landslide, unaware that Kalia had cursed the area, preventing anybody from using magic. Whoa, she even murdered the Emperor? The news of the Emperor's death in that tragedy shook the Empress to the point that she gave birth to Dionel prematurely. The Empress's already miserable situation was made worse when she learned that her baby had died after delivery, a lie that Kalia had bribed the midwife to tell in order to kidnap Dionel. This lovely Empress had endured so much. After that, there was a surge of support for Gelfus to succeed as Emperor. This was due to his supposedly increasing magical energy, which the Empress found hard to believe. After all, a person's magical energy is determined at birth, so this development couldn't possibly be real. After doing some investigating, she learned that her midwife had recently passed away, but had left behind a journal. As she continued to read, she discovered that Gelfus and Kalia had persuaded the midwife to assist in the kidnapping of her child. Although her demeanor quivered with rage, the Empress maintained her composure because she knew that putting them in prison greatly increased the risk that they would hurt her son. Furthermore, her only piece of evidence is a diary entry. Acting hastily could lead to revolt among the vassals of the Empire, leaving her with no choice except to stop Gelfus from becoming emperor. On that fateful day, the Empress sobbed uncontrollably. Her entire world had crumbled around her. Knowing her son is alive is a relief, so she's likely searching for him, isn't she? Daisy then gets shivers when she hears that Kalia killed the people who attempted to pass the barrier she created around the forests, which makes Daisy believe that this witch, whose hands are already stained with blood, could kill her at any time. She then realizes that this could be the reason Kalia returned early. She was unable to travel to the capital and instead took care of the guys in the forest. The lovers then talk about the basics of pharmacology book Kalia gave Gelfus, and it appears that Gelfus needs it because he placed the ancient map of the Great Fairy Spring in it, but couldn't find it anywhere in the library. Yup, it was the book that Daisy tossed into the flames. Well done. Gelfus throws tantrums like a child because he wants the book so badly, making Kalia suspect that he hid a rated 18 novel in there, which he denies. But Daisy has already seen it, so yeah, ew! He runs away, claiming he will visit Dionel as an excuse, leaving her alone with Daisy. She smirks at our girl, which is not a good sign, and orders Daisy to run an errand for her. She explains that she ran out of the poisonous plants she needed for creating the perfume, and Daisy should go pick it up for her, which is really unusual of her. Daisy carefully inquires if she has any perfume left to use against the savage Cerberus, to which Kalia replies that she does not have any because Gelfus took the last one she had. Without showing any shame, the witch goes on to remark that Daisy, literally a child, should handle the Cerberus, and she laughs off the idea that Daisy could get devoured. Upon Kalia's departure, our optimistic girl shines with joy because she now gets to visit Dionel. Aw, her smile is so precious. I just wish they had an adult to help them out. Daisy reaches somewhere in the forest and thanks Barrow for the ride. As she joyfully makes her way to Dionel, she stops in her tracks when she hears Gelfus. Following the sound, she finds the cruel prince toying with Dionel in his panther form with the poisonous spray. It seems like his perfume supply is becoming low when all of a sudden, he falls over a pebble and drops it. Fishy. Is that karma or an act? Daisy gets her eyes set on the perfume and discreetly comes over to get it. But as soon as she has it in her hand, Gelfus spots her and starts staring at her with such wickedness in his eyes. He tries to take it from her, but Daisy manages to slip away, and she looks at Dionel, motioning at her, indicating that it is time for a counterattack. After Daisy destroys the perfume bottle, Gelfus discovers Dionel prepared to strike. But instead of being frightened, Gelfus cannot resist but burst into laughter. I knew it! This evil crown prince is clearly just messing with them! His next move is to wield his scepter at Dionel, causing our boy to instinctively leap back to protect himself. The crown prince then reminds the kids that he is full of magical energy now and could easily take out both of them. Pointing his scepter at Daisy, he says that he and Kalia are already aware that she has been helping Dionel the whole time. Daisy does not give up hope, believing that Gelfus is only making a lie to frighten her. So she bravely yells at him to stop lying, since the witch will not send her into the forest if she knows she's on the prince's side. However, Gelfus reveals that he told the witch to do so in order to obtain convincing evidence that Daisy is secretly helping the prince. Meanwhile, Dionel in his panther form growls at Gelfus to stop him from scaring Daisy, but this guy arrogantly aims his scepter at him as he dislikes Dionel's offensive mode. Then he swings the scepter towards Daisy, spewing magical energy in her direction, warning Dionel that he can easily hurt Daisy if he disobeys his order, while our girl trembles in fear and can't stop her tears. Gelfus now yells and demands Dionel kneel before him, but he flinches when Dionel growls at him, leaving him with little choice but to warn him once more that he will kill Daisy if he does not obey. Dionel's fall to his knees pleases this crazed prince, but Cerberus is not as thrilled. Yes, I've been waiting for the doggos! They all begin to rush towards Gelfus and bite his leg, so he falls to the ground while they burn his scepter, causing this dumb prince to panic. He cannot use any magic without his scepter since he was not born with any magic, which makes Daisy smirk, knowing that Gelfus has been completely powerless. It's time for some revenge. Cerberus glares at the terrified prince, who now believes Daisy tamed the wild dogs. But our girl acts innocently, making him even angrier, and as a result, Cerberus angrily barks at him again. He slowly retreats backward, but Daisy urges him not to go that way because Dionel is standing by and itching to get his revenge. With no other choice, Gelfus kneels before Dionel, begging him to spare his life, while Barrow lifts Daisy so she cannot see how Dionel executes his revenge on the prince. And all she can hear is the prince's begging voice. Holy cow! Dionel isn't fooling around! Daisy sits patiently with Barrow when Dionel appears and transforms back into his human form. Meanwhile, Saro and Russ engage in playful banter with Daisy, seemingly seeking her appreciation for their previous actions. But Dionel moves their faces away from her, reminding them that, as a result of their size, Daisy falls down. Then he tenderly reaches out to support her as she stands. I assume the crown prince has died, right? Daisy is surprised to notice something different about Dionel's attitude, and she swiftly asks him why he has suddenly become kind, to which he smiles and says it's because he is now certain that she is on his side, which means he will now trust her. Daisy can't stop herself from smiling, since her plan to win him over has worked. As she continues to walk in a circular pattern, she notices something different about the prince, and adds that he was recently in a battle with Prince Gelfus, but she only sees wounds on his hands. He stops her from running in circles, and she's making him dizzy, and begins to explain that he's not injured when he changes his form at will, which Daisy finds astounding that he has been cursed yet can change forms whenever he wants without being hurt. It ended up being his strength. Dionel then asks her if she notices anything else weird, and her eyes widen as she realizes he can now leave the abandoned house. Everything is going their way, so she can't help but hug him enthusiastically, telling him how glad she is for him, leaving Dionel dumbfounded. He hugs her back, and she realizes that he is taller now. When she sees his face so close to hers, she notices that he seems more adult, which makes her feel shy and awkward. Cuties? Barrow then suddenly begins to whine, and she's startled to recall that nasty witch. She turns to Dionel and tells him it is time to exact revenge because the witch does not have any poisonous plant perfume on hand right now. She grabs his hand and leads the way. As they approach the evil witch's home, they both realize that Kalia is already waiting for them, calling them rats. This is not good. Daisy then detects tear marks on Kalia's face, which surprises her that a witch like Kalia can cry. Kalia looks so lost as she begins to regret bringing Daisy into her house, elude Kelna, and in her wrath, she unleashes her power on the child, causing her to tumble. Then, while Kalia's tears are falling, She reveals that she cursed Prince Gelfus to prevent him from abandoning her and to enable her to monitor his every move, which is how she discovered what they had done to him, making her more angrier than ever. Oh, I never thought she was in love with that prince. Kalia, who is currently in a state of rage, unleashes her evil power with all of her might, choking Daisy with it while taunting her for not understanding her pain. What gall! You made our babies go through so much pain! This in turn drives Dionel, who now is transformed into a panther, to roar in order to face Kalia. Dionel attacks her head-on, but even in his beast form, our boy is not powerful enough to defeat this infuriated witch. With just a swipe of her hand, she sends both Dionel and Daisy to the ground. But the brave prince refuses to back down and continues to try to attack Kalia, while this weeping witch uses magic on the poisonous plants she has, hurling them right at him, causing him to writhe in pain. Daisy quickly runs towards Dionel, crying and helpless, while Kalia slowly advances towards her, ranting about how all she could think about after losing Prince Gelfus was how to dispose of her in the most heinous manner the child could possibly imagine. With her piercing red eyes and her nasty smile fixed on Daisy, this witch is definitely taking a heartbreak in the most devilish way. The realization that they couldn't possibly be able to defeat Kalia causes Daisy to quake with fear as she clings to Dionel. Feeling helpless, she closes her eyes as if accepting her fate, but Dionel suddenly transforms into his human form, grabs her hand, and leads the way. Kalia pursues them, and just in time, Sarah and Russ arrive to protect them. They distract Kalia with their barking and block her way, allowing the kids to hop on Barrow's back. The witch gives them one last warning to come to her, but these kids aren't giving up, so Daisy asks Barrow to lead them somewhere safe as quickly as possible. As they run away, Kalia is transforming into her most terrifying form, with wings protruding from her back, enabling her to soar effortlessly. Seriously, that's a boss-level form just to fight kids! Daisy senses that the area is growing darker and becomes uneasy as she hears Kalia's voice getting closer. The doggo then stops running, which causes Daisy to panic since it doesn't appear safe at all. She has given up and is now angry with herself for getting them into a mess. But then she hears Dionel sounding so composed and promises to protect her. He pinches her cheek to calm her down, which is a success, and our girl is now smiling at him with such calm eyes, assuring him that she will look out for him as well. No, don't give us a till death do us part scene. The witch is going all out, with her enormous red aura, lightning, and even a magical chain weapon to ensure that these children do not live another day. She is going absolutely berserk, and I don't think our babies can handle her. Daisy orders Barrow to go, but the dog simply woofs a smile and does not move, which is not helping them right now. In that moment, the witch uses her chain to attack, making sure they can't get away this time while our helpless babies cover their eyes in anticipation of the blow. But much to their confusion, a magical barrier prevents Kalia's attack from reaching them. Suddenly, they hear water splashing. The lush greenery appears serene, and a huge, magnificent fairy of the spring greets them all for a lovely afternoon. Help the babies, whoever you are, you enormously enchanting lady! Daisy and Dionel's jaws drop when they see her, while Kalia, on the other side of the barrier, becomes outraged and demands that she come out to fight. The Great Fairy is completely unconcerned about the witch, and she seems like the embodiment of peace as she guarantees the children that her spring is an oasis of safety, where no wicked people may enter. Oh, the one on the map! Barrow is pleased to see the Great Fairy, and it appears that she occasionally plays with them, which is why he did not move earlier, because he knows that they are already protected. Such a good boy. Barrow has already told her stories about them, so she knows Daisy and recognizes Dionel's curse, yet it appears that not even the Great Fairy herself would be able to break the spell. After their peaceful conversation is cut short by Kalia's commotion outside, they find out that the Great Fairy is powerless to take out the witch, but she does extend an invitation for them to stay in her lush and secure forest. It is truly a paradise, but Daisy declines and is adamant about leaving, confusing the fairy considering that they'll be living a nice life with her. That could be true, but it will also make them feel imprisoned much like before. Something that rouses Dionel, who then agrees with Daisy. The fairy smiles and says she won't keep them, but will instead give them a helping hand. At long last, they have an ally! The kids are grateful, but given everything they've been through, They can't help but wonder why the Great Fairy is willing to help them. Well, she is moved by Daisy and Dionel's selfless protection of each other, but then sighs because as a fairy, she is forbidden to kill, even the witch. Our smart boy asks whether she can at least assist them while they fight, and she confirms, so the two immediately request her magical assistance. This surprises the Great Fairy, who says while playing in her spring that they already have magical energy, but then discovers that Daisy is a Lutkelna, who has magical energy but is incapable of using it, and the prince has a small amount of magical energy when he transforms into a beast. After giving it some thought, the sweet fairy confidently says that she can lend her magic to them, causing the two kids to light up. Her request for them to turn around is met by the sight of Kalia, who resembles a raving zombie more than a witch. My, is she not tired? But when they look at each other, the two kids can't believe it. They've transformed into their own teenage selves. They look so good together. The Great Fairy explains that because they couldn't wield her magical items in their child's body, she briefly transformed them into adults while approving their looks. Daisy has already seen Dionel's face on the novel's cover, but she is wondering about Daisy's future appearance because she was described as ugly in the story. So she walks up to the spring to check herself. And who's that gorgeous thing I see over there? Yup, that's you, looking so cute. The fairy then places a magic circle on their arm to serve as a timer for how much time they have left to use her power, before handing Dionel a sword and Daisy a magic wand. She adds that they have 5 magic circles that disappear every 2 minutes, giving them a total of 10 minutes to take on the witch. A magic buff? Let's go! When Daisy and Dionel exit the barrier, they find Kalia standing outside with her luminous chains encircling her, outraged by their transformation. She attacks first, but owning it to the lovely fairy, Dionel can just deflect it and is now more confident than ever. He looks really handsome here. Daisy, who is behind Dionel, is now confident enough to speak back to Kalia, which enrages Kalia even more, as she can't believe that a mere Lutkelna would disgrace her. The witch then fades and disappears in front of them, which they have no idea she could do, and Dionel is unable to detect her aura at all. This is a terrible situation, and Daisy is becoming increasingly anxious about it because they are running out of time and need to locate her as soon as possible. When all of a sudden, she hears someone pushing them to go to the waterfall. She turns around to see Barrow speaking to her, claiming it was the Great Fairy's idea to go to the waterfall. Then, Daisy sees that 2 minutes have gone by, so she quickly grabs Dionel and rushes to the waterfall. And the two realize that she understands the Cerberus thanks to the Great Fairy's magic. They set out riding Barrow, but Kalia, who is still concealing herself, does her best to pursue them, using her fire strikes along the way. Soon after, Daisy remembers that she too possesses a magical item, so she wields the wand, which inflicts pain upon her, most likely because she is Lutkelna, but luckily hits the witch. They arrive near the waterfall and have no idea what to do next when Kalia emerges limping and wailing, pointing out that her entire plan to become a princess has been shattered because of the kids. As they say, karma will bite those who deserve it the most. Daisy and Dionel watch the witch go insane as she continues to say how much she wants to be a crown princess, then an empress. So she withstood the agony of being in love with Gelfus. Oh, so she wasn't crying because she loves him? Kalia launches a barrage of attacks at them, and Daisy is about to block it with her hand when suddenly, she feels a sharp pain. So Dionel holds her hand, and they form a shield together. However, they would be unable to fight Kalia if they were only on defense. So Daisy proposes that she act as bait and lead her to the edge of the waterfall while he flees, which clearly frustrates our guy here. Dionel disagrees with her, but it appears that this is all part of Daisy's plan. So he listens when she explains that because he's more competent than her, who cannot use magic, they must part ways so Kalia will believe that she is sacrificing herself to save him. Despite her visibly terrified expression, she insists that Dionel launch a surprise attack the moment the witch lowers her guard. He is on the fence, but after checking their magic circle, he sees that they only have 4 more minutes, so he reluctantly accepts, while Daisy promises that she'll be alright. Our girl starts running away, which the witch notices right away. Just as they had planned, Daisy makes it to the edge of the cliff, but Kalia is closing in on her, and she sees right through their plan to use herself as a sacrifice so that the prince can escape. So the witch finds it hilarious as she closely observes Dionel, who remains frozen in place, leading her to conclude that Daisy's scheme is a bust. She snickers and truly believes that being a lab rat suits Daisy wherever she goes, making Daisy look at her with distaste. Kalia advances towards Daisy, poised to deliver a fatal blow, when she is abruptly stabbed in the back by Dionel, just in time for the last magic circle to fade away. A plan that worked! Yay! Kalia collapses to the ground. The magic sword piercing her evaporates, and both of our babies revert to their original forms. While coughing blood, the witch is still struck that she didn't hear Dionel getting closer, while Daisy claims that the prince is smarter than she realizes. Kalia starts screaming Daisy's name in a creepy way as she realizes that everything is part of her plan, while the two kids see that Kalia's face is aging dramatically, which suggests that she must have been using magic to keep her beauty. The mommy was actually a granny? The old witch laughs and sits up as if she has more tricks up her sleeve, but whatever it is, she won't be able to pull it off because Sarah won't allow her to. Kalia manages to rise up and resolves to teach the Cerberus a lesson, while Dionel stops Daisy from getting too close because they're now both weak. In that moment, she hears Sarah talking to her, assuring her with a smile that he'll be fine and she doesn't have to worry. Sarah then confronts Kalia directly, bites her arm, and then the two of them leap to the edge of the cliff. Our dog gives his life while taking Kalia with him, leaving Daisy to cry so much. No, the doggos have already won me over. Please be alive. They are now on the back of Barrow, returning to the Great Spring with Daisy, who cannot stop sobbing and blaming herself for being so weak that Sarah was forced to sacrifice himself. Dionel tries to console her by saying that Sarah defied his own creator, which just shows that he truly considers her a friend and wishes to help her, all while trying not to cry himself. They may have gotten their revenge, but it came at a cost. He then spots something ahead, and as he recognizes who it is, he begins shaking Daisy, who is already worn out, to look ahead, where they see Sarah beaming at them. Sarah, my boy, is alive! The Great Fairy joyously greets them after their hard labor, while Sarah and Daisy rush to each other. But their reunion is abruptly cut short when Dionel swoops in to lift the crying girl. He carries her, telling Sarah not to become too excited because it would be dangerous if they hurt a delicate child, which the good boy understands. After Sarah calms down, the prince puts Daisy down, prompting the dog to begin licking her cheek as she cuddles him. She then flinches as she hears Sarah speak again, explaining with calm eyes that he is now completely fine. Interrupting them, the Great Fairy reveals that she had a vision of Sarah sacrificing himself for her, so she had previously given him a lock of hair so she could find him easily in the future. So she knew the future, which is why she told them to go to the waterfall. However, Daisy gets confused by this, so she asks the fairy if Sarah is still alive, but oh dear. The fairy shakes her head and sadly informs her that Sarah has died. He's only visible because she gave him some of her energy, but if he leaves her paradise, he'll be gone forever. Daisy is downcast and upset that the fairy did not share the future she saw, but the fairy is certain that if Daisy knew, she would have stopped Sarah, and the witch would have been impossible to take out. Daisy despises that she knows this, but she couldn't help herself until Sarah put his head in Daisy's foggy head, pleading with her to stop crying. Sarah expresses how much he likes her, but Daisy hesitates since she doesn't want to seem to be accepting of his fate if she responds. But who could resist this good boy? So she hugs Sarah and tells him how much she likes him. He can no longer join them on their adventures, but I'll take what I can get. At least they can still visit him. I'm not quite sure whether to feel sorry for her or chuckle at her puffy face, but Daisy is having a tough day. She's feeling pretty down because she thinks she's not worth much as a Ludkelna, especially since she often gets hurt when using magical items. This causes the fairy to comfort Daisy, reminding her that even if she is a Ludkelna who cannot harness magical energy, she can still count on her knowledge. Daisy then immerses herself in studying the books from Kalia's library, which surprises the fairy to find her engaged in her studies early in the morning. Meanwhile, Dionel is curious about how Daisy plans to apply what she learns from the pharmacology books, which she casually states that she believes will be useful someday, especially since the medicines created by witches hold immense value. Dionel then decides to go hunting, but when she sees him with a sword, she's curious about why he chose to use it over magic, particularly given his abundant magical energy. The fairy quickly tells Daisy that Dionel appears to be terrified of magic and believes that his magical energy is intertwined with beast energy. However, when the fairy calls her a traveler of different worlds, it really shocks Daisy. Noticing her reaction, the fairy gently touches her head and adds that she has known this since Daisy's first visit. If it weren't for the text, I might think the fairy's trying to squish Daisy's head. The fairy thinks that Daisy is here to make amends for her past mistakes, which makes Daisy wonder if her mistake was writing a hate comment in the novel, claiming that the story is just a collection of cliches. Careful, internet trolls or author-kun will have you isekai'd. This leads the fairy to point out that it might be her purpose, which fills Daisy with hope that if she makes up for her mistake and finds her purpose, she can go back to her world. However, Dionel overhears their conversation and demands to know what Daisy is discussing and where she intends to go. He grabs her and repeats his question, unaware that he's causing her pain, prompting her to shout for him to stop. That night, both of them feel awkward, but Daisy believes she is the adult in the situation and should act accordingly. So she invites Dionel to join her for a meal, but he merely turns his head away, which upsets her. Dionel then asks her the same question again. She flinches and is unsure what to say, prompting him to gaze at her frantically and beg her not to leave. Daisy feels a swirl of confusion as Dionel clings to her, a mere daughter of a wicked witch, but she suddenly thinks that paying for her wrongdoings means she will have to get rid of the cliches in Monster Prince. Then she will be able to return to where she came from if she makes the evident sequence of events unpredictable. However, these are just her theories that she wants to check with the fairy, but she wobbles, sways, and eventually faints in Dionel's arms. The fairy watches over the two kids and reassures Dionel that Daisy will wake up soon. However, when she notices his deep sadness, she confirms with him that he understands Daisy is a bit different. Dionel then shares that there was a day when he noticed something different about Daisy. She used to torment him, but then she suddenly became kind and smiled at him as if her soul had been swapped with someone else's. As he speaks those words, he realizes that if the original Daisy's soul returns and the Daisy he's holding leaves, he will find himself all alone once again. This prompts the fairy to suggest that if he treats Daisy kindly, she will have no desire to leave, so he should ensure she feels that way. Our little Patootie is so excited about this idea and promises to keep Daisy by his side forever, as he plans to change her mind himself. The next morning, Daisy wakes up and Dionel greets her with a warm smile that makes her feel as if she's still dreaming. He chuckles at her reaction and suggests she get up so she can eat, but since the fish has gone cold, he decides to catch some fresh ones, leaving her to wait with a smile on his face. Meanwhile, Daisy becomes frantic, convinced that something is wrong with the prince, and fearing he may have lost his mind. This makes the fairy laugh, reassuring her that Dionel simply decides to act that way, and she feels that Dionel wants to stay with her. Daisy flinches when the fairy asks whether she still wants to go back. She reluctantly admits that she does, but if she can't, she will have to adapt to live in this world. This makes the fairy grin, and she gladly offers to be Daisy's first teacher. Daisy flashes that adorable squishy smile because she truly thinks she just hit the jackpot. Obviously because she will be creating medicine by combining the Wicked Witch's knowledge with the wonderful teachings of the Great Mommy Fairy. She is definitely going to be making a lot of money when the time comes, and even if she can't return to the modern world, she's confident she won't go hungry in this novel world. Today, Daisy raised her voice at Dionel because he has been bothering her, which makes our sweet little prince here feel sad, as he thinks she doesn't like him anymore. She's totally feeling defeated when he's rocking that male lead glow, so she just flops down and tells him she's got to study and he better not distract her. Dionel sweetly confirms this, but oh my, it seems like he has been saying the same thing all week. It's already the third time he mentioned it today, and it's making Daisy super annoyed. He is so clingy, and I just adore how our girl keeps making those funny meme faces because of him. Since the day Daisy passed out a week ago, she has noticed that Dionel has been showing interest in everything she does, and has been looking at her with those twinkling golden eyes. And oh, will you look at that? This boy has become a bit more flirty as he kisses the back of Daisy's hand and says he'll find them something to eat before waving goodbye, which gives our girl the chills. Our once timid boy is trying so hard, so I guess good luck. That night, Daisy awakens a bit when she hears the Great Fairy and Dionel chatting, but she's so sleepy that she can't quite grasp that they're talking about her. Dionel is stressing over whether Daisy is annoyed with him, prompting the Great Fairy to suggest that he should show to Daisy that he is truly listening by repeating what she says, but, like, in a nice way. So the next morning, Daisy's all like, "What's for breakfast? I'm super curious." And Dionel hits her with, "You're curious?" which totally throws her off. She just brushes it off and powers through their breakfast, joking that her tummy's about to explode. Dionel just won't stop repeating her words, and it's making Daisy really annoyed now, so she's like, "Why do you keep copying me?" Dionel just looks at her all innocent and goes, "I keep copying you?" And that totally sends her into full-on Super Saiyan mode. He wonders what's unusual about him, and his face is so intense it's kinda giving her the creeps. He then recalls that she once advised him to smile if he seems scary, so he gives it a try. However, he ends up looking so adorably terrifying that it makes our girl silently scream. Great Mommy, maybe it's time to reconsider teaching Dionel since this Riz thing doesn't seem to be doing the trick. Daisy got so jump-scared that she actually passed out when she saw Dionel's smiling face. When she wakes up, the Great Fairy is concerned that she seems too weak and suggests she start exercising. If the Great Fairy wants Daisy to go hunting, Dionel is happy to help and will hunt even more. However, the Great Fairy is mainly concerned that it might be tough for Daisy to study more if she's feeling this weak. That being said, the Great Fairy suggests that Daisy start exercising today, which really gets our girl excited. But whoopsie, just a little running with Dionel has left her so tired that she just plops down and rests. The Great Fairy giggles as she watches the kids chatting, sensing that love is in the air. She decides to quietly slip away, giving them a chance for some private talk. Dionel notices how tired she looks and tries to help by fanning her with his hand. Daisy takes the moment to point out that he's been acting a bit strange. Really strange. This encourages him to open up and admit that he just wants to be nicer to her, especially since he wasn't very kind in the past. He then apologizes, but she gently points out that his actions aren't really kind, which makes him feel sad. He expresses that he doesn't know how to be nice since he was never treated that way before. Daisy shows this by gently touching his hand and explains that being kind means staying by someone's side, holding their hand when they're feeling down, caring for their wounds, and giving them medicine. All of these are the things Daisy has done to him, and with a warm smile, he feels so happy that she has always been so kind to him. Ugh, these adorable little ones! Just when Daisy is about to give in to his charming smile, she gathers herself and tells Dionel he should never act weird again. He nods and straight up asks if she'll, gobble him if he follows her instructions, which totally shocks both Daisy and the Great Fairy, who appears to be listening in on their conversation from under the water. What just went down with my little innocent prince? That evening, as Dionel watches Daisy peacefully sleeping, the Great Fairy inquires about where he picked up those rather vulgar phrases he mentioned earlier, and it seems he came across them in a romance novel that Prince Gelfus had tucked away. He then shares that he isn't embarrassed or anything because he's not a little kid. In fact, nothing feels unfamiliar to him, as if he's already known all about them. Oh, hold on. Is he a regressor or something like that? When he mentions that lately he feels like a monster, the fairy recognizes that this is why he's putting on an act in front of Daisy. To be more specific, he is trying really hard to flirt with her, which makes him blush a lot. However, the Great Fairy believes that if he continues to act like a naive kid, he might end up feeling guilty for tricking Daisy. Yet he shakes his head and says that what truly matters to him is that he will never lose Daisy while doing this. Great Mommy sighs as she notices that Dionel is quite emotionally needy and really craves affection, which seems to bring out some black energy from his heartstone. She takes a little look at the future of the two kids and smiles, feeling reassured that they will be just fine. She notices that Kalia's curse on Dionel hasn't been lifted. It's just being held back by a strong desire to have Daisy by his side. So in her caring way, she gives his back a little nudge with her power. Dionel begins to feel pain, but the dark energy is drawn towards the Great Fairy. She realizes that Kalia didn't just cast a curse to transform him into a beast, she also added a spell. Right now, all she can do is try to lessen what Kalia does to him, and as long as he loves Daisy, he will find his peace. Great Mommy keeps a watchful eye on the kids, wishing that all the support she has provided will bring even more good things their way. Everyone, say thank you to Great Mom Fairy! Meanwhile, at the Imperial Palace, Dionel's real mommy, the Empress, has been putting in extra hours, and her maid is starting to feel concerned about her well-being. She has been doing everything possible to search for her son, and tonight she feels a bit let down that the people she sent to look in the forest weren't able to find him. After a little while, she hears a knock, and the maid brings the urgent news that the Crown Prince Gelfus has passed away, leaving the Empress in complete shock. The next morning, the council gathered together, and as the Empress entered the room with her usual grace, she got right to the point, announcing that the Orsanium investigation team had concluded that the body of Crown Prince Gelfus was indeed found in the abandoned forest. This raises quite a stir among the council, as they worry there might be an issue with the forest's ground energy, which could lead to natural disasters, since it seems too coincidental that both Gelfus and the former emperor met their end in the same forest. The Empress gets where they're coming from, since she had her doubts at first, but the investigation team has already checked out the ground energy of the abandoned forest and found that everything is just fine. After the emperor passed away, the nobles found themselves divided into two factions: the new noble party that came together behind Gelfus and the old noble party, which supported the Empress, as they all believed that Dionel was still alive. When the Empress discloses that the position of Crown Prince will be vacant for the time being, but not indefinitely, the council breathes a sigh of relief, knowing that Prince Dionel is indeed alive somewhere. Duke de Blazion is looking to switch sides to the Empress and thinks he can save himself by becoming suspicious of Gelfus. He asks and wonders why the Crown Prince ventured into the forest, despite its known dangers, leading the Empress to already sense that he's trying to win her favor. The Empress smilingly mentions that it stirred up her curiosity too, especially since Gelfus never went into the forest with a guard. This has led one noble to wonder if he might have discovered the Great Fairy Spring, which is rumored to enhance magical power if consumed. According to the legend, the fairy was once a god who fell in love with a human, leading to her transformation and eventually home in what we now call the Great Fairy Spring. Oh, so our great mommy was actually a goddess? In light of the fact that Gelfus was killed by a monster bite per the investigation, Duke de Blazion suggests that they examine the forest, look for the Great Fairy Spring, and eliminate the monsters. Yeah, it was a delightful little monster that did the biting. It is then announced by the Empress that she'll be the one to lead the expedition, and she gives orders to everyone to prepare the troops in preparation for an operation to sweep the abandoned forest. I just hope that this operation will not destroy the spring. Can you believe it? A whole year has gone by and our adorable little girl is now 6. And Dionel, at 10, is still just as cute, though he's got longer hair that he needs to tie up now. Time passes quickly and the Empress is still unable to locate them. Today, these two team up to hunt using Daisy's homemade perfume that draws in herbivores. She's been going through all the books Kalia left behind to get ready for making a living, and has been working out regularly, so she's feeling much stronger now. However, the biggest change for her is that she's finding it tough to tell apart the real her and the body she's in, Daisy. When they return to the spring, Daisy goes back to studying, and the Great Fairy compliments her, saying that her skills now are likely on par with those of the magicians who graduated from an academy. However, she also gently reminds her not to be too content because a Ludkelna like her cannot be a magician. This means she has to keep her pharmacology learnings under wraps since, in the Orsanium Kingdom, the palace magicians hold a monopoly on healing people. The individuals who engage in anything related to healing are referred to as witches, so the Great Fairy is encouraging Daisy to think about her choice one day if she still wishes to pursue medicine. This kingdom really needs a better system, I tell you! Dionel jumps into their conversation, calling out for Daisy because he discovered something intriguing in a tree. When she takes a look, she becomes completely enchanted by the sight of a goldfish nestled in the trunk. She has read about this before and discovers that the adorable little fish is called a spring tree goldfish, which serves as guides for witches. If they come across the witch they wish to serve, they'll leap out of the water and will request to join her. It seems our girl has caught the attention of this little goldfish, as it keeps splashing water like it's trying to impress Daisy. However, she is still uncertain about becoming a witch because she already feels detested as a Ludkelna. The thought of adding more reasons for others to dislike her, like becoming a witch, is tough for her to picture. But honestly, Goldie's adorable begging face is just too cute to say no to. A fish with a puppy face sounds weird, but it works! Thanks to the Great Fairy, they manage to shrink Goldie and place her inside a pendant, allowing Daisy to take it along wherever she goes. Our adorable girl is set on becoming an awesome witch, and when the Great Fairy asks if she's nervous about her chosen path, she confidently replies that everyone faces challenges regarding their future, so she knows she'll be just fine. Right! May you all muster the courage to pursue your dreams! Dionel is concerned about Daisy's choice, which makes her understand that he probably dislikes the thought of her becoming a witch, especially since he had a tough experience with one in the past. She takes his hand and with a confident tone expresses her strong desire to become a witch, which brings a smile to his face as he knows she'll become a really good witch. After that, the three of them decide to celebrate the special day Daisy chose to become a witch with a delightful dinner. That night, while Daisy is sleeping, the Great Fairy takes the opportunity to chat with Dionel, who appears to be a bit concerned. However, the truth is that his worry isn't about Daisy wanting to become a witch. It's more about his own complacency regarding what he can do to get by. Unlike Daisy, who is so excited about studying, he feels a bit jealous because he doesn't have anything to look forward to or a dream of his own. He really admires how Daisy is always so bright and full of life when she concentrates on her studies, unlike him. This makes him anxious about whether he deserves to be by her side. Oh, I completely get it. You could be both inspired and envious of people who are so passionate about what they do. This prompts the Great Fairy to ask if he wishes to be like Daisy, which makes the young boy realize that he truly wants to be someone who can proudly stand beside Daisy. So his dream now is to become a better version of himself. I'm guessing he wants to become an emperor to put an end to the discrimination against Lukelnas and those with healing abilities. A few days later, while Dionel and the Great Fairy are chatting, they suddenly hear a voice calling his name, which makes our little boy ready to spring into action. To his surprise, the men bow to him, and in the middle is his really pretty mom. Yes, finally! The Great Fairy is the first to speak, catching the Empress off guard as she turns to her, amazed to discover that she truly exists. After that, the Empress bows down, believing she took care of her son, while the Great Fairy chooses to unite them by having them drink a magical water that will reveal their pasts. Dionel sees his mother's past, while the Empress witnesses her son's tough past, leading both of them to tear up and rush into a warm embrace. After everything they've been through, it's finally happening. And look, even the night can't help but get a little teary too. They break their hug after a while, and the Empress tells Dionel that they need to go home since she has left the palace for a year to find him. Seeing her son's hesitation, she quickly rephrases her words and asks him if he wants to go with her. Our young prince appears uneasy because he cannot bear the thought of being apart from Daisy. But when his mother explains that she will let him do whatever he wants when they return to the palace and that he will attend the academy, his eyes brighten up. Daisy is determined to become a witch, which means she probably won't be able to enter the Imperial Palace without getting punished for her self-taught medicine skills. But what if he gains knowledge and power? He could definitely help Daisy out. It turns out you were the one who left first. Ugh, my sweet poor Daisy. Dionel requests that they wait for Daisy, who has gone to the forest to harvest medicine herbs, so he can say goodbye. But it appears that the Great Fairy cannot keep the spring's barrier open for long. She must close it before the sun sets or else monsters will undoubtedly attack them, which is bad news for the Empress's knight because they were already fatigued. Dionel hurries to Kalia's library and resolves to write Daisy a letter. So when he notices the paper and ink on the table, he quickly begins writing. My baby boy begins crying as he promises in the letter that he will become a great person and return to her. But for the time being, he asks for her forgiveness for leaving her behind. I suppose this is where they'll misunderstand each other, right? Daisy seems so cheerful when she comes back to the spring with the herbs the Great Fairy requested, but she observes that the Great Fairy isn't quite herself today. She then looks around and doesn't see Dionel anywhere, and this is when the fairy gently shares the news that he has left. The Great Fairy hands Daisy the letter that Dionel left for her, but our precious little girl becomes extremely dismayed because the letter is actually empty. Your Honor, we are the witnesses, and we saw Dionel write a letter. If the fairy pulled a sneaky move, I would definitely riot. Alright, let's continue. The fairy says that Dionel went to the library to write the letter, leading Daisy to lose power on her knees and collapse to the ground since she made the ink in the library fade over time due to the shortage of paper. Daisy starts crying, which causes the Great Fairy to fret, but she knows exactly what to do. Turn back time on the letter. Even that is ineffective because the paper has been so heavily used that turning back time only reveals all of the scribbles. Daisy puts in her best effort and reads the part where Dionel asks for forgiveness for leaving her, which brings her to tears because she feels so abandoned. The Great Fairy attempts to explain more, but Daisy stops her, feeling that the letter is enough evidence to show that she doesn't hold much value to Dionel after all. That night, the Great Fairy watches Daisy sleep and feels awful for not telling her everything, but she knows she shouldn't. Daisy feels insignificant to Dionel because he was born with great power, and Dionel feels unworthy of Daisy because she works hard, leading the Great Fairy to believe that as long as both kids are jealous of each other, they will end up hurting each other. So being separated is the best way to avoid this. So she's saying the kids should mature and grow on their own or they'll hate each other, yet no goodbye hugs and only misunderstandings sucks. 4 years later, Daisy is now 10 years old and she received, more like got slapped by, an invitation letter from a flying owl. The witches have extended an invitation and the site is in the Tainted Shadow Forest, with the gathering taking place 1 year from now. A few months back, Daisy became really curious about why Dionel had left her and hadn't even taken the time to write her a letter. This curiosity led the Great Fairy to finally share how the Empress came to pick him up. The fairy seems concerned about how Daisy will react to this, but our girl just smiles, even though there's a hint of disappointment on her face as she says that she's perfectly fine. After a year, Daisy is now 11 years old and excited for her trip at the witches' gathering, which makes the Great Fairy feel emotional as she prepares to say goodbye. Our baby has lost her adorable squishy cheeks! Daisy has high hopes to return as a wonderful witch, and today she's heading to the nearby village to collect some money. The fairy shares 3 important rules. First, to be cautious of people. Second, to be extra cautious of people. And lastly, to be super cautious of men. Absolutely, that's the best advice out there! Beryl and Russ will be there with her, and the fairy will sprinkle something on the doggies that will turn them into regular dogs when they leave the forest. She also crafted a staff for Daisy using Sarah's bone and some lovely flowers from her spring. To top it off, she gifted her a necklace orb, explaining a bit about it being someone else's orb and that it will disappear and reappear when the time is right. I'm not quite sure, but I believe this will keep her safe. It's time for her to say goodbye, and as we all know, Sarah will have to stay behind. But Daisy promises to meet him again someday. The Great Fairy gives her a gentle kiss on the forehead, and just like that, it's time for Daisy to embark on the path she has chosen, stepping out of the cozy life with the fairy to explore the world. Thank you for raising Daisy, Great Mommy! Well, it seems like the adventure thing isn't going as planned, and even Barrow is giving Daisy a look, which leads her to explain that she just follows the directions Goldie gives her. Out of nowhere, they hear a young kid calling for his mom, so they quickly look closer and notice he's surrounded by boar monsters. This doesn't scare Daisy at all. She has just the perfect ingredient to chase away those boar monsters, so she confidently steps in front of the kid and tosses ginseng at the boars. Her face is always a whole mood. When the boars catch a whiff of the ginseng, they instantly start trembling and dash away, leaving the kid, along with Barrow and Russ, in complete awe. As they reach the village gates, the guard is taken aback to see the young boy, Holland, who turns out to be his sister's son. Meanwhile, Daisy shares that she's there to sell items since it's market day in Erahan village. She says she's the errand girl for the great magician, Aranchev, which seems a bit hard to believe given how young she is. However, Halan backs her up, confirming that she must be part of the great magician's team since she managed to scare off the monsters earlier. The guards begin to think that maybe Daisy is truly a magician, and just like that, our girl gets a pass to enter the village to sell her goods. Daisy quickly sets up in the marketplace, happily showcasing all the medicine and ointments she created, playfully claiming that everything is crafted by the great magician. She gets totally shook when everyone loses it and starts rushing to buy, making her yell for them to get in line. Gosh, these adults need to be told by a kid! Our adorable doggos also help ensure that these impatient customers line up, and when everyone begins to follow her instructions, she starts selling. Not long after that, her items are sold out, and she's getting ready to wrap up for the day when a kind mother comes over, asking if there are any left. Daisy has 1 medicine left, and the mother pleads to trade it for clothes since her child is really sick. But she gets shoved by a man who yells at her to leave if she doesn't have any money. Daisy tells the man that the remaining medicine is just a tiny bit, enough only for a child, but she assures him that she will prepare more tonight. This gets the big man really excited, and he's looking forward to buying a lot tomorrow. However, our girl can already tell that he plans to buy wholesale so he can sell it at a higher price. As the man walks away, Daisy smiles at the worried mom and chooses to hand over the medicine to her. She even offers to help her child, sharing that she has some special healing techniques she picked up from a great magician. When they arrive at her humble home, the mom shows Daisy her son's injured leg, and our girl feels a wave of concern as she sees how dark and serious the condition is. The mom shares that since she doesn't have money, she's been trying tree roots and alcohol on her son's legs, which isn't really helping. But Daisy can just bite her lips and point fingers at the Imperial Palace for monopolizing the practice of medicine. Daisy kindly asks her mom to step out, as her medical procedure is something she prefers to keep confidential. Once the coast is clear, she swiftly cleans the wound, applies some ointment, and wraps it up with a fresh cloth. After that, she let the young boy drink her homemade medicine, and when he opens his eyes, his hazel eyes catches her attention. From what she knows, the young boy's name is Olive, and with his hazel eyes, our girl can't help but wonder if this is the man who will become the female lead's guard in the novel. In the story, the guard was missing a leg and was treated by the female lead, so Daisy is feeling a bit unsure if it's okay for her to save him now, as it might change the cliché plot of the story. However, Daisy isn't a mean witch who would leave a hurting kid alone when she has the treatment, so she just shrugs her worries away. I have a hunch this boy might become the second male lead down the line. Just one day later, Olive's injured legs are completely better, and our girl is all set to sell her medications at the market once more. But much to her confusion, a man unexpectedly grabs her. What even? Everyone is calling Daisy selfish and flipping out because they believe their illnesses have been healed, but she has just been hoarding the medicine for herself. What the heck is wrong with them? Shouldn't they feel grateful? The man leans forward and says that since she is the great magician's assistant, he will follow her to find better medicine. This makes Daisy feel so overwhelmed that she starts crying and trembling. A man shouts that the great magician vanished last week, leading the townsfolk to become wary of Daisy. Now they're side-eyeing Daisy, thinking she might be making the medicine on her own, and with her traveling companions being black dogs, they begin to call her a witch. This really escalated so quickly. Such ungrateful, mentally ill fools! Daisy totally freaks out and has no clue what to do, so to save her, Barrow and Russ have to switch back to their original form. They scoop her up and dip out while the crowd's all screaming that she's a witch who needs to be caught alive so they can burn her. Such sickos! She is literally a child! They have entered the forest, and Daisy is very distressed because she experienced firsthand what it was like to be a witch in this era. The doggos whimper and try to apologize, and she quickly reassures them that it's not their fault at all, since if they hadn't transformed, she would have been captured. Daisy chooses to stay optimistic and feels proud about earning money and having a water bottle that will always be full. She thinks they can figure out a way to go around the village and make their way to the Tainted Shadow Forest. I wish I could give this baby a big hug! Daisy is looking a bit messy after her adventure in the forest, and tonight she seems puzzled by her map. It says there shouldn't be any villages nearby, but just below her, she spots some houses. Daisy chooses to spend the night in the forest, despite it being filled with demonic creatures, instead of heading to where the people are. Russ quickly runs over to her, offering a shirt since she looks a bit messy at the moment. But just as she puts it on, arrows suddenly start flying her way. Author, can we just let her chill for a sec? Meanwhile, as the witches gather, they start chatting about Kalia's death. A young boy with long silver hair named Orson gently reminds them to be a bit kinder, considering it was their comrade who just passed away. He then expresses that he will take care of Kalia's death, as he is also curious about Kalia's daughter and plans to meet with Daisy. Orson is starting to feel bored as he strolls through the forest when he spots a carriage being surrounded by monsters down below. A charming man with black hair and red eyes steps out of the carriage, proudly displaying his holy sword to assist the knights in their fight. Orson sees that the man is using blue energy, suggesting he's tapping into holy power, which likely means he's from the temple. However, he is not completely certain since this man is dressed in an all-black outfit, while priests are typically required to wear white uniforms. The guy with black hair doesn't seem very skilled with swords as he wobbles while battling the beasts, so Orson decides to lend a hand by teleporting him right in front of him. The big guy expresses his gratitude to Orson, and noticing the teleportation magic he used, suspects that he might be Aranchiev's student. However, considering the dangers of the forest, he kindly offers to escort Orson to his village. As they arrive at his home, the charming man introduces himself as Devlin Hortensia, the village chief. However, Orson feels a bit skeptical because a chief wouldn't normally wear such fancy clothes. He starts to wonder if the name Devlin might not be true either. Even so, Orson understands that upsetting Devlin won't get him anywhere, so he goes with the flow and introduces himself. Devlin is eager to repay Orson for saving his life, so he decides to give him a book, mentioning that it holds special meaning for those who recognize its value. Orson flips the book and is pleasantly surprised when he reads the cursed prince's name, Dionel, which helps him realize that this is Dionel's notebook. Orson is curious about why Devlin is handing it over to someone he just met, and it's making him really intrigued about who Devlin truly is. Perhaps just one of my future husbands. Now back to our girl, Daisy and her doggos as they run for their lives. This is the moment she discovers that her shirt actually glows in the dark. Like, what? Girl, just ditch it! Ugh, my blood pressure is totally spiking. It's only a matter of time before they get captured, and Daisy is really not herself right now after everything that just happened. It's what led Barrow to give her that smile, the same smile Sero had when he sacrificed himself to save her. Daisy pleads with him to stop whatever he's planning, but nope. Barrow lets out a howl, causing the men to start chasing after him, while Russ and Daisy find themselves hiding in the bushes and crying. Absolutely not! We're not taking out any good boys in this story! Barrow, just go and, totally attack them already! Today, Devlin lets Orson know that if he has some free time, he can head to the village since they're having an auction, and there's a Cerberus up for bidding today. This surprises Orson because from what he knows, the only Cerberus that exists is the one he and Kalia made, so he gives that cheeky look as he decides to buy it himself. Oh, thank goodness, Barrow is alive! Daisy and Russ, who transforms into a little puppy, are also in the village because Russ can sense that Barrow is nearby. In this form, Russ is absolutely the cutest. As soon as they hear a man announcing that a Cerberus is going to be auctioned off today, Daisy becomes relieved because this indicates that Barrow is really alive. Orson is at the auction place, and the man in charge respectfully tells him that he can watch for free since he's a kid. However, if he wants to join in and participate, he'll need to buy a ticket. Orson lets the guy know that he's with the village chief, which makes the guy realize he must be the one who saved their chief. He quickly hands Orson a ticket for free and shows him where the entrance is. He is just about to step into the tent when a curious smell catches his attention. He decides to investigate, and that's when he spots our girl and Russ giving those mischievous looks as they make one guard in the tent drift off to sleep. I really can't take this girl seriously. As soon as she becomes aware that someone is behind her, she immediately jumps away. Meanwhile, Orson is still uncertain as to whether or not she's Daisy, so he inspects the surrounding area and notices the black dogs. He recognizes that they are the Cerberus that he created, but he is intrigued about the other one and the reason why they have the appearance of dogs. He is certain that Kalia will never train them to transform into something adorable, so he suspects that Daisy did it. He then begins a friendly chat, saying he knows she used Kalia's medicine to knock out the guard before asking if she stole it, which leads Daisy to deny it. She quickly introduces herself as Kalia's adopted daughter and shares that she made the medicine herself using Kalia's recipe. After that, Orson asks why the Cerberus got captured, and she sounds really guilty when she explains that Barrow sacrificed himself to save her. Their chat is interrupted when they hear the guards approaching, so Orson snaps his fingers, making the men become hypnotized and turn around, which surprises Daisy. Orson then extends his hand to Daisy, introducing himself as Orson, the one and only god who has come to destroy the world. Is that his sense of humor, or is he truly a god? The first thing Daisy asks is how old he is, and when Orson replies that his body is around 15 years old, she quickly assumes that he has hit that puberty phase. I think he really is a god. I'm not sure I trust him completely, but I really hope he's a good one. He encourages her to quickly take Barrow, and she thanks him before hurrying to open the cage. Once good boy Barrow is out, Orson asks the dog if he remembers him, and Barrow happily confirms this by wagging his tail. He asks her about her plan to escape, but suddenly she flinches at the sound of a pleading voice urging her not to leave. She starts to feel frantic and looks everywhere for the source of the voice, but it seems that only she can hear it. It speaks again and asks Daisy to take him with her, making her feel very uncomfortable because it's an old man's voice. Orson is feeling a bit confused, so he asks her if she got tested to confirm she really is a Ludkelna. It turns out she never took a test. It was just Kalia who said she is a Ludkelna, and that's all there is to it. Hearing this makes Orson smile subtly as he realizes that Daisy just took the evil witch's words to heart. When he sees our girl getting really upset at the voice, he can't help but start laughing, something he hasn't done in quite a while. He then shares that the voice she is hearing is likely from a supreme elemental, and when she mentions that this supreme elemental is trapped inside an elemental stone, he suggests that she should consider participating in the auction. Daisy recalls that the Great Fairy once informed her that she has a strong affinity for spirits and has the potential to become an elementalist. Daisy found this strange because she is a Lukelna. However, it appears that there are cases where a Lukelna can become an elementalist, although from the Barenfellis Empire. An elementalist handles spirits without the use of magical energy, and the fairy informed her that high-ranking spirits establish their own nests, aka elemental stones, to communicate with others. According to the fairy, there are 12 high-ranking spirits, and when they encounter someone they want to get along with, they make contact with them. Now back to our present, Orson decides to help Daisy, just for the fun of it. He snaps his fingers, turning Barrow and Russ into adorable white doggos while transforming Daisy's outfit into a really pretty red cutie dress. Honestly, I just want him to get even more bored so he'll keep helping our girl. When they arrive at the auction, Daisy bids 50 bronze for the stone, and no matter how hard the auctioneer tries to sell it to everyone for a higher price, no one is interested. Daisy eventually won the elemental stone, which startled her, and Orson looked adorable clapping for her win. When she gets the box, he encourages her to open it up, and as she does, a grandpa spirit who looks like a part-time beard model pops up. When Daisy asks for his name, the grandpa responds with grumpiness, saying it's none of her business. He then adds that she's quite lucky to have summoned a supreme elemental like him, along with a calamity. This leaves her puzzled, while Orson flashes a smile before casting a warning glance at Grandpa, prompting him to clear his throat. Daisy is unconcerned and simply asks Grandpa if they should sign a contract, but it appears that they have already done it as she bought him. After that, they go to Davelin's home, where this charming all-black guy is astonished because the owner of the stone is only a small child. Daisy proudly claims that she purchased the stone for 50 bronze, but when she learns that Davelin spent 5.1 million gold on it, her soul leaves her body, while Orson backs her up, claiming that Daisy is the destined owner of the elemental stone. Devlin accepts and understands that he cannot oppose a supreme elemental. Daisy is relieved to hear that Devlin is fine with her taking the stone, and in exchange, she vows to help him if he ever needs it. The big guy smiles and asks where they'll be heading next, prompting Orson to mention that they're off to guard Jubilant together. This surprises Daisy as she never shared her destination with him. She then flinches when Devlin mentions the witches were spotted near that area, and that from what he heard, witch hunters are currently checking it out. Daisy pauses in a hallway on the way out when she sees a painting of a man with long hair and marvels to discover that the name Bjorn Hortensia below. Oh, the guy kind of resembles Daisy a bit. Papa, is that you? Anyway, she suddenly realizes that the man they encountered earlier is none other than Devlin Hortensia, and it hits her that he's the village chief of a place that's not on the map, because from what she recalls, Devlin is the high priest of Barenfellis in the novel. Is the devil in his name a clue that he might be bad? Today, Bjorn asks Devlin if he is adjusting to living in the Orsanium Empire, and he confirms. Devlin mentions that he believes he may have already found him, although he's not completely certain just yet. Bjorn is taken aback and wonders why he didn't capture him. Devlin reassures him not to worry, as he has provided a notebook that will make it easy to track him down. Who are they chatting about, you wonder? Orson! And Devlin mentions that the person they are searching for is inside the body of a young boy who is still learning to control his powers. So all along, Orson and Devlin were suspecting each other. Devlin also informs Bjorn that the water elemental stone has chosen a master, a lady with incredible elemental affinity who is also traveling with Orson. Bjorn is puzzled by the events that have happened, but he is certain of one thing. Because of what Devlin has uncovered, it will be easier for them to carry out their prince's plan. And no, they are not talking about Prince Dionel. They are referring to Fudicion, the crown prince of the Barenfellis Empire, often referred to as the Land of God. He wasn't a believer at first, but he began attending the temple every day to pray after the goddess appeared to deliver a revelation for the first time in decades. In the oracle, the goddess prophesies that a calamity will destroy the world, but a hope will arrive to save it at the cost of its life. The entire empire began their search, but they discovered nothing in Barenfellis, prompting Fudicion to assume that they needed to extend their search, which is when they chose to examine the Orsanium Empire, with Devlin going undercover as a village chief. Okay, Orson is surely the calamity! Anyway, after they talk about the mission, Bjorn asks about something else, which causes Devlin to frown and tell him that he should stop looking for his niece. Bjorn remains silent, and Devlin feels bad for him because they're not talking about anyone else but Bjorn's sister's daughter, who was separated because of him. Oh, not Daddy, but Daisy's uncle? I am ready to become Daisy's aunt. Just saying. Daisy and the gang are still on their adventure, and our girl can't help but sneak a peek at Orson, who looks especially handsome as she reads Dionel's notebook. His red eyes bring to mind the Great Fairy's eyes, and that moment when the fairy shared that she had a son whom she had hurt. At that time, the fairy sounded so sad as she mentioned that her son never visited her, which suggests he might not want to forgive her. She can barely recall his appearance, but she is certain of one thing. He must have grown into a handsome man with eyes just like hers. Daisy glances back at Orson and wonders if he might be the son. Ma'am? Orson has red eyes and Great Mommy has green ones. Daisy rules out the possibility since she really thinks that Orson is only 15 years old. She then turns her attention to Gramps Elaine and does some calculations, wondering if Gramps might actually be the Great Fairy's son. She asks him if he remembers his mother, and he replies that he does remember her but prefers not to think about it since they parted ways a long time ago. Gramps' confession that he made a mistake to his mom is the topper for Daisy. That he is, in fact, the son of the fairy. Orson informs Daisy that they are almost to Gothel's village, which is located within the Tainted Shadow Forest. He also notes that he knows she will attend the witches' gathering, which surprises her and causes him to admit that he is from the same village. He also informs her that there are at least 30 witches living in the village, but none of them are Lukelna, and he casually mentions that Daisy has the potential to become the longest living Lukelna witch to reach the age of 30. This intrigues her, and she wonders if he means there are no Lukelna witches above the age of 30, which surprises Orson so much that she doesn't know, so he tells her to just ask Gothel later. Oh my goodness, is Lukelna's lifespan 30 years? However, look at this girl. She isn't even concerned about that, and instead fears that telling Grandpa Elaine about his mother, the Great Fairy, will make things difficult between them. So she chooses to tell him later that she is the Great Mommy's student. That night, Daisy becomes curious about the book Orson is reading, so he hands it over to her, mentioning that it belongs to Prince Dionel. He has read the whole notebook, but doesn't find anything special in it. He thinks she might find it more amusing since she knows who the owner is. The book cover mentions the Imperial Academy, which makes our girl feel a little twinge in her heart upon realizing that the person who left her is now a student there. She feels happy that things appear to be going well for him, but oh no, our girl relapses and begins to cry silently. She keeps reading the notebook and feels a sense of relief to hear news about him through its pages. She then notices her name written in bold ink, which makes her look troubled because all these years she tried to hate Dionel. However, just seeing that Dionel hasn't forgotten her brings her so much happiness, and she finally comes to terms with the fact that she perhaps does love him. They finally arrive in Gothel's village, and Daisy is taken aback by how witchy the vibe is, with everyone wearing capes and witch hats. Gothel appears and identifies herself as the village chief who gave Daisy the invitation, which causes Daisy to question how she knows her. When she claims that everyone knows she is Kalia's adopted daughter, our girl flinches and declares firmly that she is just Daisy, not Kalia's daughter. This causes Gothel to burst out laughing, while Orson smiles and decides to stroll ahead to explore the village. Gothel greets Daisy with a handshake before informing her that additional witches from other villages are arriving in the village. There are 4 witches' villages, one in the north, south, east, and west, but the other areas were just attacked, so they are now sheltering in her village in the east. Daisy appears to be saddened by the persecution of witches, while Gothel claims that while there are truly horrible witches like Kalia, most of them are simply people who studied pharmacology. The topic is becoming too dark, so Gothel chooses to shift the subject and inquires about her supreme elemental, which surprises Daisy as to how she knew about it, leading the old lady to demonstrate her witchcraft abilities by displaying a real crystal ball. However, Gothel's eyes widen when she sees something in her crystal ball and hurriedly grabs Daisy's hand, suggesting that they continue their conversation in her home. She's good, right? Not that same Mother Gothel witch who trapped her daughter in her tower, right? You know, Rapunzel? Upon arriving at her home, Gothel explains that a heartstone can be filled with either magical energy or holy power. Individuals who are born with magical energy usually come from Orsanium, while those with holy power typically hail from Bernfelis. Interestingly, Lukelnas can be born in either place. The difference is that Lukelnas born in Bernfelis are quite special since they have the ability to become an elementalist. She then mentions that Daisy's silver hair and blue eyes are signs that she comes from Bernfelis, and she's curious about how she found her way to the Orsanium Empire. Daisy recalls that in the novel, Devlin and Bjorn are half-brothers, with mothers from Bernfelis and Orsanium, respectively. They also had an older sister who died while giving birth to a daughter, which is definitely her, but she believes it is irrelevant because her main focus is on making medicine and helping those in need. Hearing Daisy's desire to practice medicine rather than focus on witchy things leads Gothel to suggest that she become an elementalist instead, as it will protect her. However, it seems like Daisy is a bit unsure about embracing her roots from Bernfelis and returning to her family. What's stopping you, darling? We finally get to see the 15-year-old Dionel, who has returned after completing a 10-year course in just 5 years. But he doesn't seem very happy at all. When he first arrived in the palace, he heard knights discussing how odd it was that he seemed to appear out of nowhere, which made him yell that he had been kidnapped by Kali and Gelthus and had managed to survive by defeating them. He thought this would put an end to their gossip, but instead it only led them to wonder if he was involved in the death of the late Crown Prince. They also don't believe that Gelthus collaborated with the Wicked Witch, so now they suspect that perhaps the Empress is up to something. People in this empire sure are crazy. How are they not even a little bit sorry for the victim? They should be punished. Our dear Dionel can't believe that stating the truth will end up sparking a fire. When the Empress arrived, she explained to him that they need to deal with the consequences and that they can't just persuade people like they could in the abandoned forest. She also kindly reminded him that he is now the Dionel Eden Orsanium. After that day, people called him by many names: the Cursed Prince, the Witch's Experiment, the Prince who killed Gelthus, but the one he hated the most was the weight his real name carried. Since he left the forest, our poor boy has felt like he's not truly living. The palace is hosting a welcome party for Dionel, but the Empress can feel that her son isn't happy about it. This makes her wonder if she was too hard on him before revealing that he was cursed. After all, she did it all to make him look secure in his role as prince. In the crowd, Dionel's eyes widen when he spots a lady with silver hair, so he quickly approaches her, thinking it's Daisy. However, he feels a bit disheartened to discover that she isn't. The Empress recognizes the young lady as the daughter of Duke Florian's, leading the lady to formally introduce herself. Dionel observes her flawless conduct, but what he really wants to see is Daisy's meme face, which he knows will definitely get super excited to introduce herself to the Empress. Just imagining it brings a smile to his face, leaving the Empress quite surprised, as this is the first time she has seen him smile at a lady. Oh no, the Empress begins to think that her son has feelings for the lady, and even though Lady Rosephine Florians is a fourth child, it would still be fine to consider her as the crown princess. If their engagement happens, it will definitely put an end to the rumors about Dionel's curse. Dionel comes back from his trance looking quite horrified, as if he just felt guilty for glancing at someone other than Daisy. Rosephine's hair makes him think of Daisy, so he believes that if the lady changes her hairstyle, he will stop seeing Daisy in her. Guess what his solution is? He asks the butler to fetch a hairpin for Rosephine, which only adds to the Empress's misunderstanding of the situation. Meanwhile, the young lady appears so happy and blushes with delight. The other young ladies begin to squeal, and the nobles who overhear are taken aback, causing everyone in the room to think that Dionel has fallen for Rosephine. I just gave myself a big facepalm. And guess where the rumors have traveled? Daisy is shocked to hear people discussing Dionel's engagement when she is going through the village. She falls to her knees and tries to control her emotions, but tears won't stop falling. She thought she could still be friends with him and root for him, but she eventually collapses from the pain of picturing Dionel with another lady. Meanwhile, in Bernfelis Temple, Crown Prince Fudicion is concerned that the fire in the relic has gone out, implying that something happened to Hope. He chooses to check on the lady who is a strong candidate for Hope, and he gets happy when the candidate, Lady Selena, hugs him and tells him she misses him. Wait, is she the original female lead? Fudicion appears to be trying to keep Selena hidden since meeting the Calamity would be dangerous, which causes her to sulk because there's a good chance that she isn't even the Hope he believes she is. People label her a witch, but Fudicion calls her a Hope because of her healing power, which makes her anxious that if she's not the Hope, she'll be forced to leave him and return to her old life. This prompts him to convince her that even if she isn't Hope, he will keep her safe and allow her to hide for as long as she wants. And truthfully, he'll be relieved if she's not Hope because according to the prophecy, Hope must have to sacrifice herself to the Calamity. Fudicion has silver eyes, a lovely trait that is passed down in the Bernfelis imperial family. They'll get a glimpse of the future, but the twist is, it will only happen just before they pass away. As his mother was nearing the end, she advised him to protect his precious something from the only beast in Orsanium. The only beast he knows is the cursed Prince Dionel, And while he isn't quite sure about that precious thing his mom mentioned, he is certain that the most precious person to him is Selena. He promises to do everything he can to keep Dionel from taking her away. He gently brushes the hair of the sleeping Selena before kissing it, determined to change his future. But, mister, I'm a bit concerned that you might be pulling her hair too hard. Hi there! Ma'am, are you alright? In the village, Orson tells Gothel that Daisy cried while reading the prince's book, which makes her think that Daisy might have feelings for the prince. Orson feels really frustrated because he can't understand why Daisy would like someone who left her. He walks away feeling annoyed with himself for trying to understand human emotions. But what frustrates him the most is that Daisy still has feelings for the prince. That is called jealousy, Mr. Calamity, who I am not sure how old he is.
So guys, what do you think of the story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one.